Good evening, everybody. Welcome in. This evening I thought that I would read a story. I've had a couple of lovely ladies asking if I would do nighttime stories. So I went to the library yesterday and I picked up something that I think everybody's probably heard or read before, and that's the Beatrix Potter. A beautiful Peter Rabbit bedtime tales. One of the things that I love the most about Beatrix Potter is her illustrations. I just think they're so uniquely done. Just absolutely beautiful. So in this book she's done 7 of her classics, and I've also got a pop-up book as well that I wanted to show you that's just absolutely beautiful. You may have all had pop-up books or seen pop-up books. I know I had one as a child. It was a Wizard of Oz one. Anyway, this one has, it's got Peter Rabbit bedtime tales. So we have these stories, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. I thought we would read that one. And I also picked out perhaps The Tale of Benjamin Bunny, because Benjamin Bunny is Peter Rabbit's cousin. So, got your blanket and your pillow and all tucked up and cozy. Let's begin. The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Here he is all tucked up in bed, Mum taking care of him. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out." Then Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella, and she went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But around the end of the cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees. He was planting out cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them He ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net and got caught up by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. I'm all caught up on his buttons. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Come on, Peter, hurry up, get up, Peter. Mr. McGregor came with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into the watering can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in had it not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking underneath each one. Presently Peter sneezed. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. And tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that wet can. After a time, he began to wonder about, going hipping and lipping, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out. Over the stone doorstep, it was carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, for she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Oh gosh. Just have a little drink of water. It's better. Then they tried to find him. Then they tried to find his straight away. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it would be best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow. And he peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. There's the gate. So Peter has to get there. Peter's got to get to this gate. It's beautiful illustrations. They're gorgeous. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go, along a straight walk behind some blackcurrant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. But Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. So he's put Peter's clothes. He's made a scarecrow. Peter never stopped running. He didn't stop looking behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole, and he shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during that evening. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea, and she gave him a dose. She gave him 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, they had bread and milk and blackberries for supper, because they were good little bunnies. That's the end. So then the other one that I thought I might read to you. The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. Yes, this one. It's gorgeous. Isn't that just adorable? Her illustrations are just absolutely, they're just beautiful. Even the colours that she uses, just divine. And I love this picture. This says Josephine Bunny, licensed to sell tea and tobacco. Look at this picture. In her little rabbit warren there. And her children tucked up cosy in the rabbit warren. There she is. It's just a beautiful cosy picture. Little loaves of bread and some milk. It's just beautiful. Okay, so this is little Peter Rabbit's cousin. It's Peter, Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail's cousin Ben. Okay, one morning a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trot of a pony. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. As soon as they passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off with a hop, skip and a jump to call upon his relations who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. There he goes, skipping off. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came around the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. "Peter," said little Benjamin in a whisper, "who has got your clothes?" "Pardon me." Peter replied, "The Scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden," and described how he'd been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and his coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a gig, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for the day, because she was wearing her best bonnet. Peter said he hoped that it would rain. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole calling, "Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more chamomile." Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. They went away hand in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the Scarecrow that was topped with the old tam o' shanter of Mr. McGregor's. It's a hat. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell head first, and it was of no consequence as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. It's the little Scarecrow in Peter's clothes, the big hat. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the Scarecrow. There had been raining during the night and there was water in the shoes and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam o' shanter, but it was too big for him. Then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home, and he ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for their Sunday dinner. The name of little Benjamin's papa was Old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently, he dropped half the onions. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. 3 mice sat on the doorsteps cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter and little Benjamin Bunny. The little mice there. It's Benjamin and Peter walking up there. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree. Oh, I already read that, sorry. Presently, Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. This is what those little rabbits saw around the corner. Little Benjamin took one look, and then in half a minute, less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. She sat there for 5 hours. I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket because it was quite dark, and because the smell of onions was fearful, it made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got around behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. Look at him there. They're stuck under the basket. At length there was a pitter-patter, pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. He was looking for his son, Mr. Benjamin Bunny, smoking his lavender. With a switch in his hand. Old Mr. Bunny had no opinion whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall onto the top of the cat and cuffed it off the basket and kicked it into the greenhouse, scratching off a handful of fur. The cat was too much surprised to scratch back. When old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door. Then he came back to the basket. He took out his son Benjamin by the ears and whipped him with the little switch. Wow. Then he took out his nephew Peter. Then he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched out of the gardens. Gosh, there's little Benjamin getting a bit of a whooping. Whoopsie, naughty bunnies. When Mr. McGregor returned about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. It looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs, only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have emerged to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat. Cottontail and Peter folded up the pocket handkerchief, and old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. The end. The tale of Mrs. Tiggy Winkle. Look at this, Mrs. Tiggy Winkle. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Just beautiful book. I want to show you this pop-up book. So I hope you're all still nice and cozy and nice and warm. So this is all about an ant who's just not very happy. He's having a really rough day and he just doesn't want to smile until someone makes him smile. So, since Bull Ant is grumpy as can be, explore the wonderful pop-up world of the happy bugs and join in the fun as the friends try to cheer him up. But who will make Bull Ant laugh? Let's have a look. Now this first picture is been broken, it's torn. This one here, that one, it's just that part of the flowers. That's so pretty, so bright. But you can see the ant there. He's not very happy. He's a bit cranky. This is a nice little story that I'll finish off with. So Bull Ant was grumpy as can be. He stomped upon a leaf and he shouted at a tree. Then from the sky a butterfly flitted. "Come, let's go play," she cheerfully chittered. Frowning, Bull Ant grumbled and waved her away. "I'm not very happy. I'm not going to play today." Butterfly laughed at her grumpy old friend. "Give me a chance and that bad mood I'll end." With fluttering wings she tickled Ant's tummy. Bull Ant just scowled. "I don't think that's funny." Butterfly stopped. She thought for a while. Who could she get to make her friend smile? Beetle was called. He liked doing tricks. He scurried to join them, his arms full of sticks. "I have just the thing to remove poor Ant's frown. I'll juggle these sticks and pretend I'm a clown." Beetle performed. All his best tricks were used. Unfortunately, Bull Ant was still not amused. Brilliant. So beautiful. Looking pretty ticked off here. Look at his face there. Not very happy. Golly gosh, woe is me. Grasshopper was next. He sang and he danced. He wiggled and jiggled. He spun and he pranced. Butterfly and Beetle both yelled, "Good try!" But Bull Ant just frowned and let out a sigh. "Your dancing won't cheer me. Please leave me alone." With his head in his hands, he uttered a groan. Next, Ladybug said, "Please let me have a go. I have an idea for a fun little show." She covered herself with feathers so bright. She squawked and she flapped. Oh my, what a sight. But Bull Ant just yelled, "Please do go away. I've had quite enough already today." Still not happy. Still not happy. Wow. Look at this. Then Ladybug's feathers flew off in the breeze. They swirled all around her, making her sneeze. The force of the sneeze sent all the bugs stumbling, and into the water they all went tumbling. Bull Ant crawled out, a wet soggy pile. "That's funny," he said, with a smile. So it was the ladybug that made him laugh in the end. That's pretty cool. Yeah, he's pretty happy there. I just love that. So that's really pretty. Yeah, that's him cracking up laughing. So it's a little pop-up book. And I haven't seen anything as pretty as that in a while. So anyway, that was in the kids section of the library. So I hope you've all enjoyed that. You're feeling nice and calm and relaxed. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I hope you all have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe and stay blessed. Thank Thanks everyone.